Crafters, welcome to this episode of the Crafting and Business podcast. I interview Lyndsay from Lyndsay Makes here. Lyndsay is a wonderful crafter and she has built a business that is international. She has merged her two worlds, which is graphic design, multimedia design with crafting. And I have loved this conversation. I've looked up to her for a very long time, especially when I first started crafting. So enjoy this chat. We talk about all things from business through to making stuff, creativity, and everything in between. And she's just a hoot. I love her. Enjoy this and let me know what you think about this podcast. If you like this kind of thing and these types of interviews, please do let me know. And if you have anybody that you would love to hear from and be interviewed on this podcast, please let me know as well. Thanks. Just a small edit here. I have to apologize twice. First, for my voice right now, because I'm a little bit sick. But second, there was a little audio glitch on Lyndsay's podcast. So if you can push through, though, it's only for the first few minutes. But if not, no worries. Just fast forward. So if the audio is too much, please do fast forward to about 4 minutes and 30 seconds where it does get a lot better. So I'm really sorry about this technical issues. I am learning as we go. So definitely we'll fix it for next time. Thanks. Welcome, Lyndsay. Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you here. And I feel like I feel like the background, it looks fake, if I'm honest. Your background is so famous. No, it's very real. I'm just going to get my hands in it.
Very real. I know. Well, it's funny actually because it's one of the rare moments where it's all kind of looking orderly. Because my son comes in and he'll often just trail his hand along the stuff and it'll go everything falls off the stuff. As kids do. So, you know, I think in the early days when I started getting asked questions about my craft room, the big thing was, oh, you mustn't have kids. And I'm like, dude, I have kids. I have kids.
Let me show you.
I have kids. He certainly keeps me on my toes.
I love that though. Like my Christopher's the same. He'll just come to the warehouse when I'm like, oh my God, I need to get 20 orders out and I need to do it now. And he'll just be like, I'll just pick this up and put it over there. So when I go to pack that order, it's like, where is it? And it's stressful because I'm like, oh shit. Sorry, I don't mean to swear. But did I like sell stock that I don't have? Like,
absolutely.
And Christopher's just like, oh, I'll just take that and I'll just take another one. And anyway, kids, hey. No, I would love to know more about everything. So like tell me about everything, your whole crafting world, how it started, how you manage with kids. Anyway, let's get into that in a second. Right. But tell me a little bit about, Lyndsay Makes as a whole.
Okay, so I guess the first thing that I would want to say is that Lyndsay Makes is my passion and I love it and everything. It is not my only source of income. So I'm very fortunate that I also work as a freelance graphic designer. I think it's really important to be transparent about that, first of all, because I think when you look at people's Instagrams, you're like, how can there be a income being generated from this stream? A lot of what I post on my Instagram is for fun or for a gift or something like that. I'm not saying that there aren't opportunities to make money from Lyndsay Makes, the Instagram account. However, I'll be very honest and say that my paid work is very unglamorous graphic design.
I would argue that it's very glamorous, but anyway.
Sometimes it is actually. I have some really great clients and I love them and I feed off their awesome products and their creativity. But any grapho will probably tell you a lot of it is, can you make the font bigger? Can you make it smaller? Can you move it over this way?
I'm a marketer. I know all all of that.
I'm
that annoying person that's like, just shift that a little bit over or change that font a little bit. Spacing's not even. And I'm that person. Anyway.
Does your eye twitch a little bit? You see like bad turning?
It totally does. And it's not even a thing that I can help. And I notice this when I'm making, like in terms of crossover and all your worlds meshing and all of that, right? There is a reason why I have to fold a garment exactly in half and heat it so I know exactly where the center is. Because if I don't put the decal smack bang in the center, it's like it's gone. And this is why I bought your guide, right? And we'll get into that in a second. but it's
I
stressful
was
for
going
me.
to say,
It's
I was going to say that
stressful.
was a masterful segue to get it straight
Oh,
into my class.
totally
Yeah,
unintentional.
no, absolutely. I read this great quote from Jessica Heash is this typographer, and she's really great at what she does. She's beautiful work, and she said, yeah, typographers are the type of people that will clean behind the fridge, and I guess alluding to the idea that they're detail orientated to a fault, to a point where it's like nobody cares about that particular thing, but that makes the design good.
I really resonate with that quote. I mean, not that I clean behind
I
the
love
fridge.
it.
I don't. I
No,
never do.
never.
But the detail, right? Like in terms of when I'm giving
That's
an order
right.
to a customer, and some of the videos that I post online, like everyone sees the time lapse and it's like a minute, and that's been cut so much, right?
Oh
But
my gosh.
you don't
Yes.
see the whole, oh shit, what if I move it a little bit over? Have I got the right centimeters on each side? Like, okay, no, that's wrong. Let me
Absolutely.
do it again. Like you don't see that, So I really resonate
No.
with
And so much about design, that's what's really interesting about design. So much of it is what you don't see, if that makes sense. Like all the considerations that people put into design work, and negative space and all those things. Like it's a lot of what makes a design great is all that small detail, and it's probably something that a lot of people don't realize they're even thinking about when they're making their own products or they're making their own items. Like sometimes it's just innate. It's almost like this thing that is just running in the background of your brain. Yeah.
totally.
So
Totally. And when I watch like other crafters and like you watch everyone and you kind of pick and choose what techniques you take and that type of thing, right?
sure.
And I kind of like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like she's really thought about that placement or putting it this way or changing a font this way or and that's and
Absolutely.
that's totally an innate thing. Like I don't know, she probably doesn't even notice it like that she's doing it, but it's part of that crafting process. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. And I always say that to people that are so adamant that they don't have any design skills or any knowledge about this, blah, blah, blah. It's like you would be so surprised at what your brain is thinking about when you're doing what you do. I firmly believe everybody's got creativity in them. It's just it's just how crazy it gets. That
Crazy it gets, totally.
person.
It shows more
Depends.
on people, whether you let out that crafting or not. I think
that's right.
That's definitely resonated with
me. Yeah.
And how did you start? Like, how did you find crafting, cricketing, all these? How did you find it all?
Okay, so I have a funny pathway through university in terms of what I studied. So I'm not going to tell you what year because it's actually scary. But I studied visual arts and multimedia at a time where kind of web design was booming. Like there was just this time where it was just so exciting, and like if you knew how to use Dreamweaver or whatever, you could make a fortune.
Dreamweaver. I remember Dreamweaver.
Yeah, so much so that like I think my third year, one of my major folio pieces was in Flash. Do you remember Flash?
Flash. Oh my God.
I know.
I remember, and segue, I was in high school and the thing was to get like I want to say illegal, but I think it was illegal.
Yeah.
Like a copy of Photoshop or a copy of Flash or Dreamweaver or whatever, and put a website up. And if you could figure out how to code it and stuff, like maybe because I was a nerd, but anyway, it was totally.
Hey, we're all nerds. It's all good. Yeah. Absolutely. And like that, and it was pretty exciting time to be across any of that stuff because there were so many people out there who were like, oh cool, you're good with computers, can you build me a website? And you'd be like, yeah, no worries. So I did study visual arts, but I was in this kind of weird offshoot, which is multimedia, and it encompassed so many different things. So it was film and it was photography and all these other mediums, and we were in the room adjacent to the graphic designers. And I never really felt like I was a graphic designer, even though I was in the visual arts stream, because they'd be doing all these very like impressive projects. Some would be like mucking around with Flash and all this stuff. And I remember sitting like in on one of their classes because my girlfriend was in one of the classes, and they're like, we need to show you, like to all the graphic designers, this amazing new program. It's going to blow your mind. And it was Photoshop. And we're like, we've been doing that. We've been doing that for ages.
Yeah.
Like, that's like Yeah. So yeah, I guess from there, yeah, and I mean, another long boring story. I did my honors degree in digital illustration. But I think at that point I acknowledged the fact that I never really felt like a graphic designer. I never really felt like I fit in that particular, I don't know, that particular realm. And that has sort of followed me throughout my life, because it's a funny thing when you are interested in design, like I love design. Um, I always felt like I was a bit too crafty to be a designer and a bit too designery to be a crafter.
I feel like that right now.
I know.
I totally feel like that.
And I'd listen to my friends who are actually like proper graphic designers, and I'm like, I feel like they're speaking another language to me. I do kind of understand words here and there, but like I don't think I'll ever be at that level. And it kind of, sometimes it was liberating, but sometimes it's also like you feel a bit lost. Where do you fit in the world if you don't, if you can't say with confidence, oh, I'm a this. And I mean, that has gone on for some time. And then I was preparing for my son's first birthday, and he is named after a character from Jaws, and we were having a Jaws themed party.
Oh, I remember.
And I had all these ideas. Yeah. I love that party. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Set him up for disappointment for the rest of his life, because it was never as elaborate as that ever.
I know. I think what most first birthdays are. But then again, 100%. He won't know. So
no way. And first birthdays are definitely for the parents more so than the kids. Like it's like, yeah, we survived and he's still alive. So there you go. But I remember thinking of all these ideas, like I was, as you do, Pinterest and Instagram and all that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do all this stuff and I'm not going to be able to cut it out by hand. Maybe now's the time I look at getting it cut up. And I'd seen them, in other contexts and with other people in very talented hands. And I'm like, it could be fun, could be cool. And I literally, like, the first time I cut something out with my Cricut, and I'm like, I remember having this feeling of like, this is going to change everything about what I do. And what I will always be grateful to Cricut and their machinery is that it made me feel like I'd found a place. And that place was designing for crafters. And it just so beautifully married those two things that I'm so passionate about. And then all of a sudden I was like, maybe this is what I was waiting for. Maybe all those years that I was like, I'm not quite sure where I fit in, this is what I was waiting for. And since then, it's just kind of gone from strength to strength, I suppose. I love what we can achieve with these machines, and I love that you can have one, whatever you're interested in, whatever you can just explore it and experiment, and and you can start your home businesses and all that stuff too. I think that's what's really exciting, and obviously that is such a huge component of your audience and mine, is that these are people who are passionate about what they do, and they're seeing an avenue for, oh, this could actually also help our families, this could be an income stream or whatnot. And yeah, it's been a really cool movement to observe and be part of. I think particularly the last couple of years of seeing how home industry has just exploded with Cricut.
And
the other brands. Sorry, the other brands too. sorry, other brands.
all crafting,
all
enabling machines. Yes,
that's right, exactly.
No, I was gonna ask. Like, I really resonate with the whole not fitting in thing, especially because, like, I'm not a designer. I'm also, like, a lot of my marketing has, like, I didn't go to uni for marketing. Right. I went to uni for an arts degree, and my first year out of uni, I got a job in events and admin and that type of thing, working for like a catering company. And that's when I realized, okay, my forte is in the communication, and I thought it was in events operations and like figuring out how to get people to events and what the event is about. I didn't know at the time that was marketing. Right. And then kind of moved out of that. And I've always been this kind of connector, I guess. Like I mean, I ran so funny. I ran a dance competition, one of New South Wales' biggest street dance competitions, on zero budget and all sponsorship. And I don't know how, but I got like 20 crews to come and compete, and they all paid a registration fee and they all sold tickets. And like I sold out one of the auditoriums at Sydney University, not auditorium, like the it was basketball or the sports center or whatever. It used to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still there. But again, at that time, I was like, I don't know what marketing is, you know? So I totally resonate with what you said about being a crafter, being a graphic designer, but not really being a graphic designer, but then finding this crafting, you know, whatever this is, and joining the two, and that's your niche, that's your your middle ground, like, you know. So, and how did you know, did it just kind of happen and you had this kind of gut feel, or how like I don't even know if there's a question in that, but you know, like
no.
how did that happen? Because I think a lot of people are looking for that, you know.
Yeah. And I think without sounding too like hyperbolic or romantic, it really was literally like pieces of the puzzle falling into place for me, understanding all of a sudden that I guess all the skills that I'd acquired and collected over the years could actually come together and be really useful, and bring me a massive amount of satisfaction in what I do, and what I make and what I can achieve. And yeah, it's definitely, it feels like even in hindsight, and it's not that long ago that it happened, but thinking back, it's incredibly pivotal for my life, like how I feel like I've been able to develop myself and to a lesser extent my business, by feeling like I have an identity now in this lovely niche that we have.
I love that. And that's how the whole, how did you realize that there was a market, or there was a gap in the tools making and the guides and all of that? Like, I mean, again, that's a beautiful example of all the pieces falling together, because I wouldn't know the first thing about making a guide, like, you know. And I know when I received it, I'm like, oh my God. And I knew you make it with the Cricut, right? Because I know that I saw your videos of your hand cutting it and then putting it in the Cricut. And I'm like, but how did you even think about that? Like, mind blown, like, totally.
I'm going to probably like mispronounce this quote, but isn't there a quote something like along the lines of necessity breeds invention? I think for me, I was learning how to use my Cricut. This was definitely very early days in the process too, because I remember I got my first Cricut Explore Air 2 in, I'm going to say probably January, and then my first guide that I made would have been only months later. I think it was probably around the April-May timeline. I should really go back and look, but it was just kind of it was just chaotic when it was happening. But so the necessity part of what I was doing was that I was making a lot of t-shirts for my son, and I was making some t-shirts for my husband, and I was mucking around and I was having lots of fun. But I was doing what a lot of my friends now refer to as classic Lyndsay, which is I was over engineering everything, and I was doing things with layers, and I was doing, you know, drop shadows and all this like crazy stuff. And this is another tangent. Sorry. My dad is a bit of a MacGyver. Like, he has taught me pretty much he and my mum definitely taught me everything I know about just being like, I don't know, fearlessly creative and giving everything a go. But I would remember him talking to me. We'd be measuring out wood or something to build something. He's like, just make a template, you know, just make something that, you know, it's that length, and then we'll just use that from there, and we'll cut, and then everyone will be right. Everyone will be the same. And I remember those words going through my head when I was thinking about making t-shirts, and they're all the same size because people was all size 1 or whatever at that point. I'm like, yeah, actually I could just mark out where the design goes, because it's going to be consistent on every t-shirt. This will save me a lot of time and wondering. And you know, when you do that thing, you hold the t-shirt up and you're like, oh, is it right? Like, is that
I totally know that.
Slightly lower than the other? And you know, and the eyeball starts to twitch. and then you're asking everybody, and they're like so bored with the question. You're like, is it straight? Like, do you think, like, if I hold it here, is it straight? So made this very rudimentary guide to, you know, indicate where that I was going to put each design on Hooper's t-shirt. And then I thought, oh, well, okay, center marking, that would be handy, like as you said, because you fold your garments in half. Yeah, okay, that'd be cool. Okay, so now thinking then, if there's sort of a recommended size width for each transfer, which there is, you can see it's all over the internet. There's charts that say, you know, if you're doing this size t-shirt, you do this width design. Maybe I could indicate that on the guide too. So then I started putting like inches out from the center mark. And I thought it was incredibly basic, and it was actually almost a little bit like embarrassing that I'd made this thing. And I posted it online on my Instagram, which had approximately 3 followers at the time. And I said, I've made this thing, and look, this is how it works, you know. And it was more like I was a little bit embarrassed. And then I started getting messages. Are you going to sell this design? You know, are you going? Where can I download it? Do you have it? Can I have the file? Blah blah. And I'm like, really? Like, are you sure? Have you seen it? It's pretty basic.
To you though.
Yeah,
to you,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
whatevs, you know, like,
I
but to
literally,
everybody
yeah,
else, it's like, whoa, we
yeah,
don't
and it
think
was
that
so
way.
funny. And I was like flattered, definitely incredibly flattered by the attention that it got, considering, yeah, as I said, I thought it was pretty pretty simplistic. But then when I realized that people were not stopping asking, can I get the file? Can I get the file? I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll put a file up. So I put a SVG up for download. Then I probably had a little bit of time to think about the design of it, and I was like, oh, there's things that I probably like to add to make it a little bit better. And I was also at that time getting a lot of emails from people saying, I'm having trouble cutting this material. What setting are you using? Blah blah. And I felt like I was doing more after sales on the file than I was comfortable with, because I just didn't have the time. Like, yeah, and for the paltry price that I put the SVG up for, I think the labor was just definitely making it too difficult. So I was like, well, probably need to look at producing these myself. And I still wasn't really aware of what the popularity would be like. So I was sort of buying a plastic sheet to make a guide to sell, you know, to send off. I was doing it very piecemeal. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Christmas of that year, it just went off. Like, it was just crazy. I was not sleeping. I was making guides all through the night. I'd hear birds chirping and I'd be like, oh crap, it's morning. Like, how did that happen? I was trying to do it all by myself, and it was like really stressing me out. And it was wonderful, because like, amazing, someone wants to buy a thing that you made. But it was also like I constantly felt like I was running to catch up on that whole, how it all happened. I don't feel like I was able to launch my product properly in hindsight, and there are things that I would have done so differently now. But it was just, as I said, it just sort of caught me by surprise. It was wonderful. But it was, yeah, a bit all over the shop, to be very honest. It was. And then that Christmas was the bushfires in Australia, and it was horrible trying to post anything anywhere. Horrible for a multitude of other reasons, I should say. I don't want to sound cavalier about the fact that it was an incredibly traumatic time for a lot of people. But I then faced one of my first of many issues with shipping, and I was like, oh gosh, this is just crazy. And then we went into the year, which was COVID.
Just that little thing.
Oh yeah, so that was I guess a huge learning curve for me, and it broke my business. COVID broke my business. Because I was shipping predominantly overseas. So I was shipping probably, say, 9 or 10 guides to the US, to everyone in Australia. And when the planes stopped flying in and out of Australia, there was no chance. And I was heartbroken, like, with how all of a sudden I couldn't ensure things were going to be places. And as you probably know, customers don't always understand how little a role you play in shipping. Really, at the end of the day, we put a label on a box and we really hope for the best. And we can't retrieve it once it's in the system. We can't do anything about it. We can't make it move faster. Trust me, I tried. I'd considered going to the Melbourne airport and just say, can you just pass me all my parcels back? I should work something else out.
So many times I've considered that.
My gosh.
Like knocking on the door and like, please, I need this to go. I get that.
I know. And the thing is too, like, you as a solo business owner will reply to emails, but the shipping companies won't. So you become the contact. You become anyway, and so it was breaking my heart that how difficult that was. And around that time I closed my business. So I was like, I can't do this. And that's actually when you purchased your guides. That was my loop around.
Yeah.
I I was like, I can't, I can't do this. And it's devastating because I feel like I was just hitting my stride. I'd released, I think 5 at that point, 5 different guides for 5 different uses. And I was so proud of it, and I was so proud of what I had invented, and I was so terrified that if I stepped out of the game that, someone else would come up with something better, and there would be all my hard work gone, all that stuff. So it was really difficult to do that part. Acknowledge that something isn't working, that it's failing. And so
what was the tipping point there? Like, I don't want to bring up any old feelings, and
I
feel for you, honestly. But I want to know, because how do you know when enough is enough and you have to close that door? Because probably a lot of people are at that stage, and they really want to make it work, but
yeah.
how do you know?
It's heartbreaking, because it is literally like being in love with this perfect person and realizing there's just no way that a relationship is going to work, no matter how hard you try or what you do. And for me, like, I was like sick to my stomach every morning. I'd check my emails and I'd be like dreading what was going to be there in terms of, where is my order? I've spent this large amount of money with you, blah, blah, blah. Why can't you tell me exactly where it is? And unfortunately, I had a run of that. And then a customer got onto my Instagram account and started saying that I was a shady business because their order hadn't arrived. And that broke my heart again, because you put your everything into your own business. Everything.
I feel for you.
Yeah.
Just some people they don't understand that, like, it's you're physically cutting everything, designing everything, shipping everything. And I would love to be able to clone myself and have 5 of me.
I know, man.
It's not going to happen,
dream.
right?
That's the dream. One of us could be sleeping.
I know, priorities. But I totally resonate with that. And how do you, like, again, I understand, because I know what it's like to be a customer as well, right? And when your items that you need something and it's not moving and you need it quickly, and you're getting, questions from your customers trying to say, where is the item? I get that. I get the frustration. But how do you deal with someone that's shouting at you when you know that it's like you literally can't do anything about it, especially in the situation
out
of
of your
bushfires and shipping?
How do you,
like, just take a second?
I know. Well,
like, what techniques do you use? Like, teach us, oh wise one, because I'm at that stage where it's
find a place to ugly cry, first of all. Look, I think being on both sides of that scenario definitely helps. I've had a huge career of working retail and customer service, and I understand it. And I think the first thing is acknowledging that it's not necessarily you that they're angry with, it's the situation. And as soon as you make that a third thing, that's not you, it's not your heart, it's not your it's not your baby, it becomes a little bit easier to troubleshoot and try and solve the problem. For me, when this was happening and it seemed to be more negatives than positives, that was when I made the decision, this probably can't continue. And once I'd sort of decided that, in a way, it was a little bit easier. And then I just worked with each customer that was upset or angry. And I was like, okay, let's work together and see if we can find a solution to this, because I'm hearing you and I'm hearing what you're saying when you're disappointed, because I get it. And I think particularly for people that are in industries like ours, like also people who are in scenarios like ours where they're working from home, and maybe this little startup is coming out of their home budget, or it's coming out of their, their savings or whatever, and they've made a substantial investment in something that they've purchased from the other side of the world. I mean, oh my gosh. And it's not showing up. Like, I get that. So I think I was trying to relate to people on that level and say, look, I do actually genuinely understand why this is disappointing for you. It's not comparative, but it's disappointing for me too, because I don't feel like we've had this, this transaction because you haven't got your item. Like, and this is, and it's,
it's upsetting for me too. And very upsetting because I think if you can't help to fix the problem, you just feel doubly bad. Do you know what I mean? It's one thing to hear, but another thing to not be able to help. So I guess in a very long-winded way, COVID was awful, but it gave me a marvelous gift, really, because I was able to take a step back from what I was doing, stop running to catch up with like where the business was going and what was happening, and actually think about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and what, did I want to keep making guides? Did I want to do something else? It was a forced break, a forced reset. And I'm grateful for that now when I think about it. I mean, we were also in Melbourne where literally we were like the city of lockdowns. Everything kind of came to a standstill, and it was actually really lovely to stop for a while and think about that stuff, because I think also it's probably the same with you. I know that with small businesses, it's really hard to work in the business and on the business at the same time. I know that's a real cliche thing, but it's so true.
It totally
it's like
is.
if you're making product, you're thinking about that, and you're physically doing that. And that's a completely different mindset to think about managing your business and forward planning and marketing and thinking about where you want to go. So having closed my business, I was able to then think about that stuff, come up with something as a game plan, and realize that what was really giving me joy and making me happy was creating things for people that they found useful to follow their dreams, to, make a business, make a name for themselves, make things. So I came out of COVID knowing that was definitely something I wanted to resurrect. And that's what I've been able to do. So slowly and surely, we're sort of starting to get back. Yeah. So I relaunched my store and made new guides, which was fun. New packaging, all that stuff. And yeah, I'm giving it another go.
That's awesome. I was really so it's funny because I found you through Amanda through Cricket Cole.
Yes.
And
yes.
it was her video on the baby onesie with the pilot, and I thought, oh my God, mind blown. This is the Top Gun theme. I'm not even a Top Gun
Maverick. Yeah.
I'm not even that. I think I saw the third movie first. Does that make sense? The new one first. Anyway. And and I think in that video, was it that one or something else? Anyway, I can't remember. I saw your guide being used in it. And of course, I went on the stalking thing, and I'm like, who is this? And of course, when I started following you, I to be honest, I didn't realize that you made them by hand. I did not realize, right? So I just thought, okay, it's a guide, and it's a great idea. But at the time, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't know where my business is going. I don't want to invest in it, so I won't buy them yet, And then of course you had your sale. You had your sale, and I'm like, now we're
closing down. So.
But I was actually a little bit like sad, because I'm like, okay, if it's great, and like, what if I need more? Like,
I know
that's the business me,
Yeah, isn't it funny? I remember getting your message, and even before I knew what you would become with your wonderful business. So you just and it's funny because Amanda and I have talked about you previously, and we've gone, she's just good people. You know what? She's just good people. And I remember you saying, and you were so beautiful and you were so apologetic, and you're like, look, I know you're not doing this anymore, but I'd really like to get a set of you guys. And I'm like, you know what? I'll make you a set. It's okay. Because I think I'd been selling out of all the stuff I already had. And you were just so beautiful. And then I think for some reason your name just stuck with me. And I think we talked again about something envelopes or something.
I think you remembered. Yes, we did talk about the envelopes. No. We talked about the rigid envelopes, because I didn't know where to get them. Yes. I was selling stickers at the time. That's exactly why. But you remembered that? Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
No one. I was just like this weirdo.
No, you're gorgeous. And it was so shout out first of all to Amanda, because she is just oh my gosh. Where do we even start?
Where do we start? This should be the
Where do we start?
Amanda appreciation episode.
I'm completely a fangirl of Amanda.
I know. And there's an episode coming for everybody that's listening. Yes, we are fangirling, but yes.
Oh my gosh.
She's like celebrity. Anyway.
And also she's just a force, and she's
totally
inspiring and hilarious, and I love it a bit. So when I was it was earlier than that. I think I approached, like, messaged Amanda, and I said, would you like a set of my guides? And she's like, yeah, sure. Like, and I think she was sort of still, her account was still quite fledgling then. Like, it's hard to remember what it was like before she had like 100,000 followers.
100,000.
She was already creating like consistently awesome content, and I was like, I know that she's going to go places, but I want to put my guides in her hands to see what she thinks. And I think our relationship's always been like that. I've always been very keen to hear what Amanda thinks, because she's just insightful and
so good
and she'll tell it like it is. And and I think in a way she's always made me feel supported to do better and be better. So I was very excited to get my guides to her. Anyway, I got them to her, and she immediately puts out this video, and we joke about it. We call it the cricket cult effect. Where like all of a sudden, like, you literally wake up and you have like several hundred new followers. You're like, cricket cult effect. Amanda's posted a video. I know what's going on. And I owe so much of my exposure to her, because as her brand was growing, she was showcasing mine, and it was just you can't put a price on how beautiful and valuable that is as a small business, to have someone championing your product from a place of genuine, like, this is good, like, this works. So
there is not enough of it.
And I think also in this day and age of sponsored content and whatnot, it's actually really important to also identify that was the case with Amanda, and everything that she does is incredibly genuine. Like, I don't think she would ever, like, I know that she was so excited when you were starting your business, and she was saying, this girl, she just gets it. She just gets what people want, like, and when she was using your product, she was genuinely loving it. And I think people feed off, like, people recognize that, they recognize that energy. And I'll be forever grateful for Amanda.
And it's so funny, because it's like, it seems so obvious, like, and people ask me all the time, like, they think I'm a marketer, so I know all the tips and tricks and all the code and like what trick, like what tactic can I use? I'm like, it's literally just me being me and being absolutely as transparent and as genuine as possible, because
100%
people can spot a fake. Like sponsored content, people pay for followers, people, all of that. You don't know what's real, what's not, right? So when someone is real, it's actually quite refreshing. There's such power in being yourself and being genuine and being you, right? Because people buy from people, like, and I refer to this in the course. And I always say the first thing you do is figure out what your why is. And when I say why, I mean, why are you doing this? Like, what do you want to be known for? Like, do you want this to be a business? Do you want this just to be a hobby? What do you want from this? And for me, I mentioned before, I'm a connector, and I always have been. I am always finding myself like connecting people with people, and and I just can't help doing that, right? So when I say grow a community, that's what I'm doing. Growing community is like the technical term, but literally all I'm doing is talking to people and banding them together, right? So, and when you say that about Amanda, and I would say that about all social channels and all businesses, if you're trying to do this social media thing and trying to grow your business, literally just go back to your roots and be you.
100%.
It's so simple, right? But
and I think in this time, and once again, we're in just such an interesting time in terms of content creation and social media and how all these things are coming together. I think the most valuable currency we're going to have is authenticity. You are talking to somebody and they're passionate and they're like driven and all that stuff. It just cuts through the noise. And I think voices like Amanda's are incredibly important in that regard, because I feel like there are so many people now doing cricket crafts. They're doing, all these different things, and they're wonderful. Each and every project is pretty cool when you think about it, because it didn't exist before you made it. But some voices just cut through that noise. I think people like Amanda, staying true to that idea of, it's got to move me to, to talk about it. I certainly hope that will never get lost.
What you said before about everyone's starting to get a Cricut now, and or everyone's getting into this crafting world, and and like I'm hearing a lot of negativity around it. Like everyone's like you go on Facebook Marketplace and you see when you type in something personalized, there's probably like 10 people that can do a personalized bottle for you, right? But I feel like you're a perfect example of using this machine and using crafting and finding your niche and figuring out something that's a little bit different from the norm, right? So
oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
No, and that's and like you're a perfect example of it. Amanda is a perfect example for it. I'm an example of that too, because I'm like,
absolutely.
I tried the personalized thing, and I had a newborn, and I had this, and it just wasn't for me. I didn't have two hands to make stuff, so and
no,
with
100%.
marketing experience, it kind of just meshed this way, right? So I guess, do you have any tips and tricks or advice for people that have the machine and they love what they're doing, but they don't know how to find their own thing? Like, any advice or any tips?
Well, this is definitely more your strong suit than mine. I guess
think so.
I can only really talk about my own experience, and I think first and foremost, what I had to acknowledge was that I wasn't probably going to get a lot of return customers. Generally, once people bought my guides, unless they were buying them one at a time, it was sort of my one and done sale. So I was thinking to myself, how can I make this sale into another sale? And what I found was most successful for me was making a point of difference so that people wanted to talk about it afterwards. So first of all, I feel like there was a little bit of a niche for the guides. So, a lot of people were having trouble with alignment. And t-shirts are expensive, and vinyl is expensive, and messing up a design and letting a client down, that sucks. So obviously that was a problem that needed to be solved. That was my initial why, I guess. But then I started to explore that more, and I thought, well, okay, what is exciting about getting a parcel in the mail when someone puts in a little bit of effort? So things like a handwritten note, a bit of ribbon around it, things like that.
I still have that ribbon.
Yeah.
The black ribbon that you use. I'm like,
the black ribbon. Yeah, I know, man. I thought about that, and I thought, if I can make this cool enough that someone will want to say, oh, I bought this guide, and not only does it do this, but it also came in this wrapping, blah, blah, blah. You're getting that genuine engagement, and it's being passed on to, say, a friend or a colleague or something like that, and they trust that opinion because that's your friend telling you or whatever, and they're doing the marketing for me. And that seems to be, for me, something that worked. But when you break that down, when you unpack that a little bit, it's like, I think if you're trying to work out how to have your own voice in the crafting world and how to be you, just think about what drives you. Like, just actually just really look inward and go, okay, what gets me excited about this particular thing? I know that there is a lot of merit in looking at what, say, a demographic requires, or what there's a demand for, and all that stuff too. But I'm a firm believer that if you're going to do anything, you've got to do it with your heart. You've got to do it with your passion and your drive. So you could be making money making something that people need, but you could just be so unjudged by it that you're just like, or you could put all this, this joy and happiness into this thing. And I swear, like, I think that is, that's a product in itself. Getting excited about a product is a product in itself. I don't know if that makes sense. I think with anything, if you're going to do any kind of product, you're going to make any kind of product, get excited about it. Just love it and know that you love it, because there's going to be times where it's going to be really hard to make it, and you're going to have that love there, otherwise you won't do it. There's going to be orders in the middle of the night, or there's going to be social events that you can't go to because you've got to get things done, or there's got to be blah, blah. And if you're doing something so boring and something so unexciting, you're like, no, it's not worth it. But if you're doing what you love, you're just like, there'll be another barbecue, there'll be another thing, blah, blah, I'm doing this and it's making me so happy, and the end product hopefully is making someone else happy. I think for you, Debbie, it's definitely, you are your brand. So your face, your voice, your personality is your brand. I think people would remember you, when they see your business name. I think that's marvelous. So I think if anything, that's something to take away, is thinking about how to sort of infuse yourself in your product. And then I think you'll find that just because we're all unique and individual people, that your product will be individual and unique because it's you.
You want something that's, I guess, an imprint of whoever it is that made it. I'm a perfect example, right? Like you could buy my can glass or you could buy someone else's can glass, and they're probably going to be really, really similar in the way that they come through, right? But I guess my difference is, it's been tested, that you'll get it within a day or whatever, of course, pending shipping orders and all that stuff. But if you have an after sales question and you don't know how to cut the vinyl that goes on it, I know, like, I can help you with that. It's really hard because a lot of people do say, especially when they get their Cricut machine, they're all excited, they make their first item, whatever, and then they're like, oh, someone else can do the exact same thing, and it's heartbreaking because they get deflated.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I'm here telling them that, you can do it. You just got to find what you're passionate about and how do you imprint that little bit of you into whatever it is that you're selling, and I haven't cracked the secret of that yet. And if you have, please let me know.
I think you have. I think you probably have more than you give yourself credit for. I think there's, definitely something very you about everything that you do. And I love that about you. And I think that's probably why people keep coming back to you too, because they're like, you feel like a friend. You feel like you feel like a buddy.
I totally am, but I totally am, like, because I've been reading a lot of like CEO books and all this, like trying to grow business and all this stuff, right? And everyone's like, outsource everything, and I'm like, no. Like, no. I know I need to because I can't like clone myself, I haven't told this to my audience yet, but anyway, cat's out of the bag. I'm looking at 3PLs, right? So 3PL is logistics, because I physically cannot I cannot keep packing the orders, right? Like I only have daycare Monday to Wednesday, and in those orders come through on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I don't want them waiting, right? I can't have them waiting, especially if they're running businesses. Anyway, so I need to look at a third-party company that is shipping every day, that can get stuff out quickly, and there's a cost to that, but also they are a well-oiled machine where an order comes in, they figure out what numbers, what SKU numbers, all that tech, whatever. They put it in, they pack it in, it goes, right? But I'm like, what about a thank you card? Or what about writing the customer's name? Or what about, like, I give a freebie, like it might be something really little, keychain or stickers or something, But I give one every order, and they're like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, what?
Oh, I know.
Or they say, oh, they can, but it's going to be X delay, or it's going to be X amount. I'm like, seriously?
I was doing that for free.
But it's also, but also that's probably why, I can't physically, because, if you think about it, it takes 30 seconds to put a thing in, but that times however many orders you have, okay, I get it. So CEO, telling me, okay, I probably need to outsource that or figure out something. But I'm like, but it doesn't come across. So something, again, that's normal for me is not for others, right? So
I know.
I don't know. It's if you have the answer for that, please let me know. But I'm figuring that out as we go. Like,
oh my gosh. I think if you can, like, it doesn't matter if you're a 1-person business or a 20-person or whatever, you probably need to look at every part of your process and go, what needs some me in that? And I think if you can relinquish control over that packing thing, you think about it, it doesn't really require a Debbie. Do you know what I mean? Like the glass will still get in the box regardless of who holds it. But it's letting go, because these businesses are our babies. They're they're our child. They're our far more demanding child than actually our children. I think we start businesses and we are micro businesses because we want to do that personalized little touch, that little thing. And often, as I said, that's a selling point. Like I would much rather spend my money with an artist or a creative person that I know that if they get that ding in their email and there's a sale, that they go, yes, awesome. Rather than the big box, superstores that really couldn't care less. Doesn't really matter if you buy there or not. But it's, as I said, I don't have any answers. I think it's so difficult to relinquish control. And I think a lot of that is about, like I identify with that because I couldn't relinquish control over making my guides. Like, even though it is ridiculous, and I do actually acknowledge that they don't require me to actually cut them all out. Someone else could do that. That's not a uniquely Lyndsay thing that I'm bringing to the equation. but it is, yeah, as I said, it's just weighing it all up. And I think also too, a lot of us don't build enough profit margin into our product to pay for a third party anything. Like, I was always trying to price my products at a point where I didn't think it would like discourage someone from buying, if that makes sense. So I was like, I need to pay for a little bit of my time and obviously all the material, because the material is a significant amount of the product price. And so I did that at the lowest price point that I possibly could. And that became a huge problem when I was approached for wholesale, because it's like I literally do not have that margin built in, you know. There's all this, and it's so funny, there's all these considerations every single day. If you're running your own business, you're thinking about this stuff all the time. People don't quite understand what this is, this mental load of running a business is like, you know. There's so many things, it's so difficult, but I think that's where it's cool, like if you can build a community like you have, like obviously where we can reach out to each other with questions. I've got my beautiful crafting group that we're on WhatsApp, you know, talking about craft, and we're also talking about like, how do we face this business problem, how do we solve this. I think we can all learn a lot from each other.
And you need that, like, because you need the people that have kind of walked that path before you, and even if they
100%.
don't have that answer, if they don't have the exact answer, they can at least point you in the right way for you to go and find that answer, you know. And
absolutely,
when communities are grown, it's because, you know, you've taken that help from someone and you've brought it back and you've helped somebody else or whatever it is, you know, like, yeah. And there's so much in that there's not enough of, with competing businesses, and the amount of stuff that I see, just people tearing each other down. Like, I think
one thing that really resonates about you to me is how generous you are with your knowledge, and you give it so freely. And I think that then motivates people around you to do the same. I think it's almost like this weird pay it forward thing, but with information and knowledge and experience. My friend Sarah and I went to the Caesar grand opening in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about
Sizer, because I've been saying Sizer, but anyway,
I have a story about that, about filming a video that went for an hour where I pronounced it wrong the entire time. Caesar, and as I said to you, I remember it like Caesar is in either Hail Caesar or Caesar salad. For some reason, that an Italian kind of links in my strange neurodivergent brain. So that's an easy way of remembering. But yeah, Caesar. And we were talking to some of the people that were there, and it was amazing because you have this group of people that were interested in the same thing together, and it can be really lonely and isolating being a small business owner by yourself, operating out of your house or whatever. You don't get to get out there and talk. We don't get summits and conferences and things like that where we don't get Friday night drinks and all this stuff. So it's actually,
I think that's why I started a Facebook group. But anyway,
that's that'll do it.
Little There are so many of my customers, like what you were saying before about friends, because my customers are my friends, literally. And Janine, who's she's from Flyjaw Homewares. And honestly, it's getting to the point where I'm telling her, like, babe, I'm putting a ban on you. You can't buy anything from my store. I'm not letting you. But what are you making?
I love it. You're like the bartender cutting her off, saying, sorry, you've had too much.
Totally am. But I'm like, she's always sending me stuff, and I'm always like, oh, why don't you take a picture outside? Or like, why don't you try this font? Or I'm always doing it, because like I found my group, my people, and when they get it, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not weird. I mean, I am weird, but like they understand it. Yeah.
It's so good. And I think also what's marvelous about being able to do that is that you're that one step away from that person and what they're making and what they're doing. And you can kind of see things a little tiny bit more clearly. So you can see the tweaks that could possibly be made to make something that's awesome even better. So like, that's cool. And once again, and this is what I don't understand, what we were talking about before, when people are negative rather than positive when someone reaches out to them. It's like, surely it takes so much more energy to be negative and to be closed and to not, than it is to be positive and share what you can. I mean, I don't know how you assign any kind of like tangible hit to being a dick, you know, like in terms of like,
Totally.
sorry, I was like,
It's no, but what is the benefit of it?
how do you
Like,
say, how do you say I lost money by being kind to someone? Like, where is that on a spreadsheet or whatever? So yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, life's too short, man. Just be nice. Like, not even, you know, like just be a good human. I don't think it's that difficult.
And it seems so simple, eh? Like,
I know.
There is another human on the other side of your message, just saying,
Oh,
like,
100%.
you know,
Yes.
and I'm going to be a human
Yes.
back, right? Even though you're like angry and taking out on me and, you know, screaming, shouting, whatever, I'm still going to be human. Like, but sometimes it's just, it doesn't work both ways.
Yeah. Isn't it funny, Debbie, too, that like that stuff resonates with you as a small business more so than say the 100 people that love you and they loved your product and it was such an easy breezy process and blah blah. It's that one person that like, you know, they get a little bit angry and you're like, you sleep and like you can't sleep and you're thinking about them and you're thinking about why they're so angry and,
like, why, like,
and wishing that it wasn't. Yeah, I know, but it just really hits you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but then
I think I'm a classic overthinker. Like, I'm an overthinker and I get anxious about this stuff and like my mind goes to, okay, this customer had this bad experience. What do I need to change? I need to change this, you know. And in a way, it's great because it improves everything, it improves the business. But I'm that overthinker, right? So it probably won't even be true. So it means that like I bring to light something that a customer didn't even notice, like another one I'm talking about. But it's also good because I've preempted that problem or whatever it is, you know. 100%. So in a way, it's good, but it's also really exhausting, you know.
Oh my gosh, it's so exhausting because you just take it all on, don't you? You just take it all on. I remember when I was in customer service, you know, there's sort of a three-prong approach. So first of all, you're hearing that the customer has this issue, you're identifying, you're saying, I'm listening to you when you're saying that you're having this problem, and I understand that this is affecting you in a way, you know, that you're so motivated that you need to email me about it. So it's obviously significant to you. And then being like, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this right. Here's what I'm going to do. And yeah, I guess in a way you can take that feedback and use it to make your product better. So maybe there is merit to be an overthinker. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it is an opportunity then to. And I think we were talking about this as well about after the Caesar event, that there is just so much, I don't know, I think it's so admirable if a company comes out and says, look, you know, we love our product. We hope you do. It's not perfect, but we're going to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we're going to work with you to make it better. And the customer feeling like, okay, so there might have been part of the process I wasn't 100% satisfied with, but if I say something, at least it's going to resonate with that person and it's going to register, and they're going to try and make the process different for the next person and better. You know, I don't know. What I'm saying is you've got to kind of look for that silver lining in that stuff and go, this is an opportunity to be better and do better. And I admire companies that are honest and transparent about that and saying that, you know, we might not have all the answers right now. We may not have launched a 100% completely perfect product, but we're committed to making it as good as we possibly can. And you're part of that. You, as a customer, you're part of that. Yeah.
And I think there's real merit in you as a business owner taking on that feedback and showing your journey on how you're making 100%. It better, because there's nothing worse than, you know, you shopping at Kmart or McDonald's or whatever you putting in your feedback and be like, second time around and my order's still wrong and my whatever is broken, you know. So when a customer can see that your journey in taking that feedback and making the product better for the next person, there's so much in that the customer really appreciate.
Yeah, and it's just shows humility, which is another amazing thing with authenticity in the world, just showing that you acknowledge that you're not going to have it completely right from the word go.
Totally.
You're doing your best.
Exactly. I feel like there's a part 2 in this, so
anytime we'll just need a cocktail.
I know, totally.
Go to the next one. It's such a pleasure. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you for this. It's awesome.
Honestly, you're such a wealth of knowledge, and I feel like a lot of people will learn from this, and probably everything that we've talked about. So many people are going to be like, and like nodding in their cars on the way to drop off kids, and and I really want that for this, right? Like,
I certainly hope so.
Kind of find their tribe and know that they're not the only one that's going through this. Like,
absolutely not. No, and also never assume that no one else is struggling with things that you are struggling with. If sometimes people don't talk about it, I think that's why it's really important to be forthright about the struggles. I mean, I could tell you all about all the glorious and wonderful things that have happened, but I think it's more important to say, hey, look, some days it's not perfect, some days it's really effing hard, some days you will cry, some days you will be sucker punched, but but we're all in it together. We're all ready to give everyone a virtual hug and say it's okay, I've been through the same thing, blah blah blah. So, and I think that's this podcast is so great in that regard, because it's like, I was listening to one the other day and I'm like, actually that's the same thing as me. So no,
God, you're listening to my podcast. Oh my God.
Oh yes, I am.
I'm fangirling.
Oh
my God, you're one of the
awesome.
I think I woke up one day and it was like 10 subscribers. I'm like,
nice.
Because I hadn't even told anybody yet. I hadn't told anyone. I think I mentioned it in a TikTok. It was really like it was that validation moment in me. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I am doing the right thing, even though I'm taking on something completely new, figuring out as I go, adding on another thing to my task list. Doesn't matter. I know,
like, you haven't got enough things to do.
I know I'm on the right way. It's almost like justifying it to myself, but anyway.
And you're also giving people a gift to like be able to talk, like what we've been talking for however long.
God, too long.
I never get a chance. I never get a chance to talk about this stuff, so I'm like, yay, exciting.
I'm so Thank you so much, Deb, for your time and for sharing everything. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.